Hey Internet, hey YouTube, this is Nate. You can also call me Nathan. Um, this is going to be a little bit of a different style of video. This is, I mean, as of this week, I hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and for every YouTuber, it's a pretty big milestone. But for me, it's been hitting a little different. Um, and I want to talk a little bit about why that is, share a little bit more about my background than I ever really have on stream, and explain a little bit in more detail why I started doing this and what this whole experience, streaming, making YouTube videos, and so on, like what this means for me. So I think you guys know, if you've watched a lot of my videos, so my wife and I, we have two kids. We moved to Germany about 6 years ago for a job, and about 4 years ago, we made a pretty significant decision that had a lot of both positive and negative impacts on our lives. So we both grew up in very active families within the Latter-day Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You might know it more as the Mormon Church or LDS Church. And we were basically all in this church for our entire life up until just a few years ago when we decided to leave that church. I don't want to go into a lot of the reasons why we left, but it was a really difficult thing for us. I think if anyone's been part of a church that is, I would say, a little bit more than just like going to church on Sunday, it's really an everyday part of your life. And it was a really difficult decision. We spent a long time deciding whether we were okay with it, because some of the impacts of leaving the church we knew, some of it we didn't know, but we knew that it was going to be a significant change in our lives. The first one is pretty straightforward. The first one is your belief system, right? So when we left the church, part of that was a lot of our core beliefs. We had to challenge and rethink what we thought about a lot of things about life. There was a lot of psychological, emotional trauma from that. When you have a very specific set of beliefs, and those beliefs are kind of core to how you live your life, your identity, and then those beliefs go away, you're kind of left with, okay, well, who am I then? What do I think about a lot of things? And having to come to terms with a lot of things that we really hadn't dealt with apart from just within like the scope of what we believed within our church. So we both went through and sometimes still do, pretty significant existential crisis. What does death mean to us? What do we get meaning out of? I mean, there's a very kind of set path for you in the church, and now we had to kind of rediscover, what is it that we wanted? Where were we going to find meaning in our lives? So that was the first part. The second part was, I would say, more of an immediate impact, but today isn't so big of a deal, and it's more like the impact on our family relationships. So a lot of the core beliefs in the church is around family, that families that live faithfully, they get to be together when they die, and suddenly our decision to leave the church challenges that within our own families. And so not only were we going through this, it was something that was affecting our families as well. On both sides, both my family and on Lara's family, we were the first of, and in my case of my family, the only that seriously thought about leaving the church. And so this then calls into question not just like our own personal belief system, but what does that do to our families? They now, in a lot of ways, think, okay, this means that Nate, Lara might not be with us when we die either, because they've chosen to do something different, and how's God going to look on their decisions, and so on. And so there was a lot of struggle there for a long time, knowing how to communicate with them, how to rebuild their relationship. I mean, not that the relationship was broken, but The relationship had to be built on different things. It was no longer built around our shared belief system. It had to be built around different things. So, and it took us a while to get into a rhythm with our families, knowing what's the right way to talk about things. How do we not overshare in terms of the reasons why we don't go to church or why we don't believe in the church? Them also trying to figure out what can they share. Can they talk about the church? Is that offensive to us? Can they bring up major life events? I mean, if you're part of any Christian church, things like baptism are a big deal. Other sacraments are a big deal. And now with us kind of outside of that, I mean, do we get invited to baptisms? Do we get invited to all of these things become a little bit more awkward to talk around. And it's not that there was never a feeling that our families were like, how do I say it? They were never like angry with us, I don't think. At least we never got the impression they were angry with our decision. But they weren't sure how to handle it, and we certainly weren't sure how to handle our relationship with them for a long time. Now, several years later, I think we've gotten and reestablished very strong relationships. There are certain things we just don't talk about with our families, not because we're trying to hide anything, but because it's just we're living very different lives than it used to be, that everything was kind of the same, similar events, similar beliefs, similar goals, and then that kind of changed when we stopped going to church. So that was kind of the second impact. So we had this psychological, emotional impact, we had this family impact, and then the third was this loss of our community. And it's a big part of your life being part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's all encompassing. It's not just that you go to church and you see people on Sunday. It's that you're dedicating part of your time. Usually you have a responsibility. A lot of your friends, like a lot of my best friends, came from the church. A lot of people I went to school with, I went to school in Utah. A lot of them were, all active in the church. And so now we have this kind of again, not just with our families, but with our community, this kind of awkward tension. A lot of people that our friendship was solely based on the church, we disconnected with, not intentionally, but just out of we don't have a shared interest anymore. So it's those relationships just kind of fall, and unless you have a shared reason to continue having the relationship, it's difficult to keep investing in it. And I think it's not their fault, it's not our fault. It's just the nature of we had different interests, diverging interests, and the relationships kind of dropped. We have some friends that we know worked really hard to keep a relationship with. So we have a handful of friends that we still do things with. Some who were not 100% certain whether we were still going to church or not for a long time. But I think now most of our friends are aware of our situation. And those that wanted to stay keeping a relationship with us, we've done that. But this kind of general sense of community, this culture that we both Lara and I, and the kids to a certain extent, we grew up in, was gone. And so we had to reestablish a community, and we did it in a foreign country, which made things quite difficult. So we don't have, there's not tons of American friends that we've had here. We have a handful that we knew, but it became difficult for us. My wife was a little bit better. She's better anyway in general about building relationships, and she got some good friendships. She started working. Through her work, she made friends. Through just kind of other random things that happened, we made some friends, and that was pretty good. But for me, these friendships were built mostly around having shared life or a shared point in our lives. Young parents, right? Parents with younger kids, and which is fine. But for me, I had this whole other part of my life, which used to be more church oriented, but also other things. I loved video games, loved reading, loved all these kinds of things. And I didn't really connect with any of my friends and our new friends in this way too much. A couple of friends where I did, but most of my friends I didn't really connect in this way. and I was starting to feel very, very lonely. Um, and it got kind of progressively worse. I wasn't really making new friends. I tried to make friends through my work, just struggled to like get any like consistent interaction with some of my colleagues outside of work. Um, Again, tried maintaining friendships with people from church, and that worked. Some people moved, so that made it difficult, right? Like people aren't always staying in the same place. And there was a point when I basically talked to Laura and just said like, I feel really, really alone a lot of the time. Like even though I have her, I have the kids, I didn't really feel like I had any close friends or a kind of community like I used to have when we were still active in the church. And this, along with a lot of like, I started getting panic attacks because not only was I having these existential crises, I was having this kind of like lonely crisis. And my insomnia got a lot worse. I've talked about this before. I've had insomnia for most of my life, where it comes off and on as I get anxiety. One of the symptoms for me is that I don't sleep, and it was getting worse. My mental health was really struggling, and it kind of came to a head when I was playing. I'd been trying to play through Dark Souls 3, if you know the game, and I'd played it, stopped, played it, stopped, played it, and then finally I started playing it again, and I finished the game, and I was like really happy for a moment, and then somehow like all of that pent up loneliness just kind of like hit me really hard, and I just felt like lonely beyond what I could handle. And I realized I needed to do something. I needed to do something to break this profound loneliness that I was feeling, and this missing my community that I wasn't a part of anymore. And I thought a long time about doing something around making videos. The plan was to make videos about my playing games with my kids. That was like my first thing. I'd already started playing with the kids one-on-one and recording those videos with the intention to like make created videos. But at the same time, this Monster Train game was in beta, and I was watching some people stream it and make YouTube videos about it. I got the beta, I jumped into the beta, and I loved it. I had a lot of fun, and I thought maybe I can jump in right when this game first comes out and just start streaming and see if something happens. And the goal has never really been for me that I wanted to stream to, make it my living or whatever. It was, I thought it would be cool if there were some people that watched and enjoyed how I was playing, and I could connect with people by streaming and making videos. So that was the idea. And obviously, when you're brand new and you're the first time and no one knows who you are, you get in there, and maybe people pop in for like a couple seconds and they're gone. And I went through several streams where one person would chat one time and that was it. And then I had a random guy who I think he still pops into my streams every once in a while, Jorgazu, who just started joining my streams regularly and would chat with me. And like it was a little thing, but I felt connected, and I felt like somebody cared about something that I was doing. And I hadn't felt like that in a long time. And so I kept doing it. I started putting YouTube videos out. I would just cut little pieces of my streams, put them onto YouTube. I tried doing some like video guides. I tried doing a bunch of stuff, and slowly started building up a very, very small following where, not much, like 20 to 40 views on a video maybe. On a guide, maybe it'd get up to like 100. That would be pretty cool. My speedrunning videos did pretty well for a while. My streams were averaging between, 3 to 8 views. Eventually, that was enough to hit me over the edge to become a Twitch affiliate. And then I just kept doing it more out of like habit and just wanting to stay connected than anything. And then, I started thinking about different kinds of things I was doing. It was satisfying, a lot of that. But then as it started to stagnate and people weren't so interested in the game anymore, I started pivoting and thinking about other things I could do. And that started to come back a little bit, that feeling of loneliness again. And then, I mean, out of nowhere, and I guess not out of nowhere, it was planned by the developers of the game, but it hits Xbox Game Pass, and all of a sudden my views start going up. My streams are getting like way more participation, and really since like end of last year, I started to feel like I was connected again, and that there was a community for me. And as I now just hit 1,000 subscribers again, it's not like massive, but for me, I just want to say thank you for helping me find connection again in a time when I was feeling so alone. And if you've felt that way before, and if you're feeling that way now, I hope that you're also able to find a way to feel connected. I hope that if you've been watching me and participating in streams, I hope you know that that I'm grateful for you, that I appreciate those that are even, whether you're actively chatting or whatever, being there, knowing that people are interested in what I'm doing, that I appreciate you, and that I'm grateful that you've decided to let me be a part of your life. And I'm grateful that you have all been a part of mine these past few months. I'm planning to continue. I don't know what the next year will bring. I certainly didn't think a year ago that I would be streaming and have a channel that had 1,000 subscribers. It was not at all a thought on my mind. So I'm just feeling really grateful and want to let you know. And just, again, the idea was just to give you a little bit of background and maybe ground a little bit what this experience means beyond just like the, I can throw ads on YouTube, but whatever. Like for me, it's always been about building up that connection. The fact that I have regular interaction with some guys that also create content has been fantastic for me. Participating in these tournaments, like all this kind of stuff, it has filled in that hole that I've been missing, helping to be part of the healing process for me through this transition over these last years. And so again, not to belabor the point, just want to say thank you. Wanted to say thank you to those that have subscribed, that are continuing to participate. Hope you guys continue to enjoy, and if at a certain point you decide, you know what, I'm done with this guy and his monster train playing, I want you to know that I was grateful for the time that you spent with me, and hope that you are able to find communities in your life that support you and help you, and that's basically it. And with that, I'm going to end, and I'll see you guys in the next videos. And again, as always, thank you for watching.